Tyrone Bowman live. According to an article in the Wall Street Journal, the tariff ruling for the Trump administration is put on hold while the appeal continues. Let's talk about this story. Let's get down to it. And once again, according to the Wall Street Journal, this is Tyrone Bowman live. A federal appeals court has temporarily put on hold a ruling that voided President Trump's tariffs while it considers the administration's challenge to the lower court decision. In a brief order Thursday, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit said it was pausing Wednesday's decision from the U.S. Court of International Trade until it can hear further legal arguments. The order, known as an administrative stay, didn't rule on the merits of the litigation. Administrative stays are common in emergency appeals. The Federal Circuit and Intermediate Appeals Court in Washington, D.C., signaled it was prepared to move swiftly on the case, as the Trump administration had urged it to do. It asked a group of companies that challenged the tariffs to file a brief before January 5, laying out their arguments, and directed the Justice Department to reply by June 9. The order indicates the appeal will be heard by the full court, with 11 active judges participating. The appeals court move came as the Trump administration scrambled in search of a stay on the tariff ruling, which Justice Department lawyers said it was, quote, rife with the legal error and upends President Trump's efforts to eliminate our exploding trade deficit and reorient the global economy on an equal footing, end quote, according to a filing with the Federal Circuit earlier on Thursday. Lawyers for the administration had asked the appeals court to step in on an emergency basis. If not, they said they were prepared to ask the Supreme Court to intervene to avoid the irreparable national security and economic harms at stake. The administration's urgency underscores the stakes in the legal battle over tariffs for Trump's sweeping trade agenda. Since taking office, the president has wielded tariffs as leverage in hopes of bolstering the U.S. economy and manufacturing base, bringing other countries to the table to negotiate more favorable trade deals and pursuing other national security policies, whatever that jargon means. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt echoed that in a briefing on Thursday, there is a troubling and dangerous trend of unelected judges inserting themselves into the presidential decision-making process. What does she mean by unelected judges? Judges are never elected. She's talking about judges who have been appointed to the benches under previous administrations. What difference does it make whether the judges are appointed or elected? They are judges. Some of the stuff they come up with is just insidious and hard to believe. A judge is a judge. Some judges are elected, others are appointed. She further said America cannot function if President Trump or any other president, for that matter, has their sensitive diplomatic or trade negotiations railroaded by activist judges. We need activist judges. That's not a bad word. That's a good thing. We should have more judges who are activists instead of just going along with the status quo. She said the administration would press its challenge as far as it could. Ultimately, the Supreme Court must put an end to this for the sake of our Constitution and our country, she said. Well, also the Supreme Court should intervene on other serious matters as well that threaten the constitutionality of people's free speech and the constitutionality of people to protest peaceably regarding things that they necessarily don't agree with. So this is a two-edged sword. It doesn't just go one way. Trump has invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 to underpin most of the second-term tariffs, from duties on Canada, Mexico, and China imposed over fentanyl smuggling to the far-reaching reciprocal tariffs levied in early April on virtually every U.S. trading partner. A three-judge panel of the Court of International Trade, a tribunal in New York City, ruled Wednesday that Trump lacked authority under IEEPA to impose the levies. The court does not pass upon the wisdom or likely ineffectiveness or effectiveness of the president's use of tariffs as leverage, wrote the three-judge panel. That uses is impermissible, not because it is unwise or ineffective, but because EPA does not allow it. The Justice Department argued that pausing the ruling wouldn't harm the companies that brought the lawsuit because they would receive a refund, including interest for tariffs paid if they ultimately prevail in the litigation. See, corporate America and especially billionaires, when this starts affecting their bottom line, meaning the stakeholders, their money, their salaries, the dividends, when it starts affecting the perks and things that they receive, then they're against it. But as long as it's punitive and hurts the middle class and drives up inflation and causes people to have to spend more money unnecessarily, then greedy CEOs are happy because they're making money, as long as the average individuals are suffering. That is a stipulated fact. You notice they don't like to call it the middle class anymore because, as far as they're concerned, there is no middle class. They always like to say the lower class. What do you mean the lower class? What the heck is the lower class? That's a demeaning term. People are people. The Justice Department argued that pausing the ruling wouldn't harm the companies that brought the lawsuit because they would receive a refund. Well, how do they know that? Their bottom line product is going to be hurt because individuals are tired of paying more for goods and services because of taxation. That's all tariffs are. It's taxation without representation. People need to study the James Madison era when he was president of the United States. Sometimes it's good to go back in history and know what history talks about. James Madison, taxation without representation. It wasn't called the Boston Tea Party for nothing. Appeals from the Court of International Trade are heard by the Federal Circuit, and any other challenges from there are heard by the Supreme Court. Complicating the Trump administration's efforts to salvage its tariffs, a federal judge in Washington, D.C. on Thursday joined the Court of International Trade in holding that Trump's tariffs were unlawful. U.S. District Judge Rudolph Contreras said the tax of IEPA, as well as historical practice, indicates that law doesn't encompass the power to impose the sort of sweeping levies used by Trump. In the 5 decades since IEPA was acted, no precedent until now has ever invoked the statute to impose tariffs, the judge wrote. Contreras blocked the Trump administration from collecting tariffs from 2 businesses that brought the case before him: Learning Resources Incorporated and Hand to Mind, which develop educational tools and products for children and manufacture most of their products in Asia. To me, this seems like this is a lot of buckying going on here. Remind me of the mafioso days when they try to stronghold the local businesses in the neighborhood and tell them they can guarantee them protection and all that type of thing. Then they charging them an enormous amount of money every week. Really, it's extortion. If you look at a lot of the old mob movies, and the Goodfellas and the Godfather and so many other mob movies out there, it was old-fashioned extortion. And this is political extortion. I bring taxation to you unless you do what I tell you to do. Extortion. Lawyers for the 2 companies had agreed not to seek a nationwide injunction, saying a more limited order would streamline the case. Contreras said his injunction wouldn't go into effect until 2 weeks from Thursday, allowing the Trump administration time to appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. Tyrone Bowman. Never surrender. Never quit.